Hello and welcome to another paint along tutorial. Today we're going to be painting an ice cream cone. Very fun. I went with a dark background which brings out our ice cream and pops it. You can use any colors you like. I decided to go with pink today because I thought that would be fun. And we did mix quite a bit of colors in here. We used some of our leftover paint, which was great for the background. So if you haven't checked out that video yet, take a look at how you can save paint at the end of each painting by just scooping out your palette and putting it into a little glass jar. And yeah, this was really fun. So let's get started. Okay, so not to worry if you don't have this color mixed up, I'll show you how to make it. But it is good to start saving your old paint at the end of each painting. I've just filled up my palette here, and I've usually fill it out in the same spots every time. It just makes it easier. You'll get like a little bit of a muscle memory when you go to reach for your paint. And so I always put my white in the middle, and I put two spots in case one gets dirty, then I can go to the other one. And then I typically start with yellow. I've left 3 spots here to mix all of those colors, my orange and my tertiary colors in there, intermediate colors. And then I've got red, 3 spots, blue, and then I have a spare palette in case I need to mix any more colors in there. What I want to do is start using some of the leftover paint, and I have a little video on how to save your leftover paint here. So I've got this jar, this little glass jar, and it's starting to add up. I've been surprised at how much paint gets tossed out usually at the end of each painting session. So I started to save it, and it's given me this kind of green gray color, but it's a nice way to extend your supplies a little bit. So I'm going to scoop some of that in here. I'm just going to put it in here. And I'll show you how to mix a color similar to this if you don't have this started up already, and yours might be different than mine. And that's okay too. We don't always have to do everything exactly the same. It's just good to kind of use these general practices here. So don't worry about the exact color too much. Okay, so I've got that. Just going to clean my brush off and seal this up. You want to keep paint air dry, airtight. So if I just left it out without the lid on, that would start to dry up really fast. So I'm going to put the lid back on there and save that. Give my brush a good clean. The more you clean out the paint in the cup, the better it is. And then I always have some paper towel on hand just to make sure it's fully dry there. Oh, and I'm also just using my 2 basic brushes here. So I've got a small round brush and a medium-sized filbert, which is just rounded on the top, but any sizes and shapes close to that are perfectly fine. I've got my image transferred, so today we're doing a little ice cream cone. Ice cream with a waffle cone. There. Okay. So let's get started. My first step is going to be drawing in the lines with my baby bear brush. I call this one baby bear brush and this one mama bear. So I like to use purple for my lines because it's kind of the quickest, darkest color I can get to. So I'm just going to take a scoop of blue. Should rinse out my brush now. A scoop of yellow. That's not yellow, that's red. Okay. I'll take 2 of red because the blue is fairly strong. And swirl that up. We're going to get a nice purple shade here. All right. So I'm just going to go in over my lines. And you're welcome to freehand this if you don't want to use the sketches provided and trace them. You can just follow me painting them. That's a very good way to do it too. But the sketches are there just to provide you with a little bit more comfort if that's what you prefer to do. Okay, now there's a little seam here. And then all these shapes in this ice cream are basically just shadows. And I'm not really concerned about getting them 100%. This is just a guideline. And you can add a little bit of water to your brush just by dipping your brush in the water and then in your paint a little bit. Mix it up a little in there. And that will help to spread the paint a little bit easier. Some of these are just so small, I'm just going to use my brush width to kind of fill that in there. And like I said, don't worry if you lose track of some of the lines. They're not all completely crucial. It's just to give some shape to the ice cream and a little bit of interest with the shadows here. And then there's a little bit of definition of the waffle cone down here. So I just kind of marking that with a few lines down here. I've got my reference sketch off to the side. I recommend you just kind of keep it handy if you ever want to check where the lines are, because sometimes it's hard to see them all on the reference sketch. So I'll just tuck that to the side for now. And yeah, not totally crucial that we get all these lines, just a bit of an indicator as to what's happening here. Okay, so that's fine. You can even just draw hash mark lines on there if it's easier. Okay, that's pretty close. I've also got my color guide out, which you'll be able to see a file of that here, just for a little bit of a cheat sheet on mixing colors. So it's a bit handy to have as well on the side. Okay, now there's a few areas in here that are dark, so I'm just going to take more of this purple and darken those now. I like to do the darks in this stage here. Acrylic paints tend to be fairly transparent, so it's easiest if you can show all your shadows at these early stages here. Okay. There's a light ridge here, so I'm going to leave that as it is. And it does get darker. That's an interesting thing to think about, the light source of what you're painting. So I can see my light source is coming from the top left, so that means my shadows are going to be darker on the bottom right here. So I'm just going to lightly go over this. I don't have a lot of paint on my brush because I still kind of want to see those lines there, but I also want to indicate that this is in shadow on this side here. And if I lose a little bit of them, that's okay too. I'm just going to kind of darken to the seam here where this waffle cone wraps around. Okay, and if you feel like you've lost some lines in there, you can definitely go back and darken them up. But it's really important to show the shadows, and that's what's going to give it that feeling that it's 3D and it's something real. So I don't mind losing a bit of lines to show that. Now, our background, I also want to set in a dark shade. So I'm going to take out Mama Bear. So I'm going to wash Baby Bear. I don't like to let my brushes sit with paint in them because it will dry really quick and be hard to clean out. So try to clean them in between colors. So I got Mama Bear here, and I'm just going to go in the background and give it a light coat with the purple too. So I'm going to take some water and thin this down because I don't need it to be so dark. And I want to cover a good amount of area. So maybe a little bit more water. And we're going to add a color to this, but we're just working on our lights and shadows right now. It's nice to just focus on one thing at a time. So this is what I do in my oil painting as well. I just focus on lights and shadows at the first stage, the underpainting, like to call it. And once that's all set, once the composition's down, then I go in with the color. So don't worry about brush strokes right now, just filling in this entire background all the way up to the ice cream here. It's been super hot lately, so I feel like this is a nice way to embrace the summer and give yourself a little bit of a relaxing painting to do and look at when it's scorching outside. If you have to mix a little bit more up, we're just going to take 2 parts red, and this time I'll start with red. So 1, 2, okay, and then I just scrape the paint off my brush. I'm not worried about going into the blue here because blue is a lot stronger than red. So if you prefer to wash in between every single color, you can. But I know that that blue's going to be just fine with the tiny bit of red that was in my brush there, so that's okay. Okay, so I got my purple, and then again some water to thin that down. Now we can also think about light and shadow in our background. So because the light's coming from this way, I will want to make it darker on this side. So that actually kind of worked out good. I ended up having more blue in it this time than the first time. Happy accident. That was not planned. But you can also just paint it on in a thicker coat, and that'll give you a darker version of that color. If you like to paint the sides, now is a good time to sort of carry that around. I usually don't bother with it, but it is kind of nice when you're hanging them up on the wall to paint the sides of the canvas. Okay, so I'm just going to blend the two out here. Carry this blue in a little bit into the purple here. When you're blending two colors, you kind of think about the direction. So I'm thinking darkest over on this side here, moving to light. So that's the way I'll work. Create a little bit of a vignette action over here, kind of darker around the edges, but generally getting lighter up in this top corner here. And I'm not too worried about these brush strokes because this is just my first coat and there's going to be lots more coming. So don't stress about that. You can put a tiny bit in here too. The dark background allows whatever you're painting to really pop out. So I do like using dark backgrounds. Okay, that's good. Now we'll give that a chance to dry a little bit there. And you can think about what color you want to do your ice cream. I'm just going to clean out my brush. Pick maybe your favorite kind of ice cream or your favorite color. Anything you like. Let's do the waffle bit next. So I'll stick with Mama Bear. And that's going to be kind of a light beige, tan kind of color. So I'm going to start with a good scoop of white. Okay. Some yellow. And just a little tip of the brush in the red. Kind of have to think about the strength of the colors here. So yellow is going to be weaker than red. Red is weaker than blue. So when I'm mixing my colors, I just have to be mindful of that. So I'm not going to go in too heavy with the red because I know it's really strong and it's going to dominate that yellow quickly. So this is going to give us kind of a light yellow. I do want it to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to add a little bit more red. You can always add more. It's impossible to take it out other than just compensating by adding lots more yellow. So yeah, just go in carefully with your other colors. Now it's kind of like a pink, which is actually pretty close to what my waffle cone is, but if I wanted to take it a step further, I'd add a touch of blue, but forewarning, you have to be very careful when doing that because it's so strong. So if you need to take Baby Bear brush out, take Baby Bear brush, but I'm just going to take the tiniest little bit. And this is where it often goes a little haywire for people with the blue, because blue is super strong. So like just a little bit, even maybe a little less than that. Okay, tiny, tiny bit. And then I just want to mix it into this. And just that little bit of blue enriches that color and makes it not peach. Makes it a little bit more of the color we're going for. Okay. Now I could have used my gray. That would have worked too. So we're just going to brush that in here. Now this color has a lot of white in it, so it's fairly opaque, solid. So I'm going to brush around my lines just so I don't lose them all together. And if I do lose them, not to worry. We'll just do new ones. It's okay. See if I can go over them. Yeah, I can paint over them a little bit. So whatever is easier for you, do that. You do you. Okay. Right, now I do want to do this side, but it's a little bit darker. So I'm going to add some, I'll show you how to mix black, and we'll add some black to this color here. Okay, so I just want to take paint off and clean my brush. I give it a good pounce just to make sure all the paint's out. There. Okay, I'm going to take Baby Bear brush to mix, and black is going to be, for these paints that I have, it might be a little different, but basically a little bit of everything. But I use 2 reds, so 2 scoops of red. I'm going to put it over here in the dark side. 1, 2, red. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out. I should start with the light color, but I wasn't thinking about that. So just rinse it out. Because I could probably go from the light color to from the yellow to the red to the blue without having to clean out my brush. But anyways, 1 scoop of yellow. And it's hard to get them totally even, so it may require a little bit of tweaking. That's okay. And 1 scoop of blue. Okay, mix it all up. And this is going to be like our near black. So we can't get true black like it is from the tube, but we can get really close to that color. And mine looks a little on the red side, so I'm just going to scoop it a bit more blue in there to darken that up a little bit more. Sometimes you have to just brush it onto the canvas to see if it's the right shade. That's pretty good. Okay, so that's working well. Now I want to darken my cone here. So I'll just mix in, I have some in my brush. I don't want too much, but I'll just scrape a little bit off because I know there's a lot in the bristles there. And I'm just going to swirl that around in this color here. Now I might do a little bit more. And a little bit more. And you just kind of feel it out. We want it to be about that color there, so I can see it's a little bit darker. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I'm just going to go paint this whole section in here this color. I know what you're thinking. It's kind of an ugly gray, but trust me, it's gonna work. Trust the process. Just leaving a few of those lines so I know where to go a little darker. And while we have this color, let's use it. Oh, wow, look at that. It was so close to my leftover paint color. See, that's why this comes in handy, because you can use that for dark shadows. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of lines in here, just to show the waffle edges that are in shadow there. It's your choice on if you want to leave some of your purple showing or not. I kind of like to at times, just a personal preference there. Okay, that's nice. A couple more dots maybe. I love dots. It's very like pointillism kind of style. Works well with my impressionism loose style. Now, let's go into the ice cream. Okay, so I want you to pick your favorite color. I'm just cleaning out my brush. I'm going to go with pink today. A nice pink ice cream. Okay, so you get your favorite color, whatever it is, and you mix it up. And then it's just a matter of lightening and darkening. So you can follow along with me with any color that you like. The principles are the same. So we're going to need a good amount of paint. So I'll take Mama Bear brush. A good scoop. We want to mix a good amount right off the bat because we are going to lighten this and then darken it. So maybe 2 scoops of whatever color you need. And then I will just go into the white here. See, I'm going to mix that up. I've got 1 to 2 there. See what that looks like. Might just be perfect. Ooh, that's bright. This is like Barbie pink. Awesome. Now, to enhance this color a touch, you can just add a touch of yellow. So I might just take Baby Bear to keep my brush clean and scoop in some yellow here. Not too much, but just like, you know, a good little scoop there. Okay, clean that brush off. And anytime you can add a little bit more interest to the color, I think it's generally a good thing. So instead of just going with the pink, we've just made it a little bit more on the orange side, just slightly, but takes that, you know, simple mixture and just makes it a little bit more interesting. Okay, so this is going to go all over and let's see how it covers. It seems to cover pretty good, so I'll just kind of dance around the purple here. And I'm overlapping a little bit on the edge here because I just don't want to see any white. I can cover up the small ones. That's okay. The small dots here, because I can still see them. So basically just painting in this whole area. I'm also painting over the outline there. It's going to create like a nice shadowed effect. See how much paint is in my brush still? Crazy. I haven't even reloaded yet. All right, need a little bit more. And I just want to cover the white of the canvas here. It's going to take a couple passes, so don't worry about if it's looking thin. That's just the nature of acrylic paints. Okay. All right, now you can go into these dark colors a little bit. It's kind of nice to overlap them slightly. Gives you like another shade there. All right, looking good. Now, I'm thinking I'm going to work with this ice cream while it's wet. I like to work and mix colors, sometimes wet on wet, sometimes like the background. When I'm creating a darker shade, I let it dry and then go back to it. But in this case, I want to work with this while it's nice and wet. So let's do some dark shades and then some light shades. Okay, so we'll scoop out a little bit of this color over onto a empty spot for dark, and then we'll scoop out a little bit for light, and we'll keep some in case we need to use this mid-tone color again. Okay, so I'm going to take some more white, a good scoop here, and lighten this up. This will be our highlight color. So whatever color you use, just add white in a separate spot. It's good to pull it away. That way I can get 3 colors out of that. So I can still use my existing. I'm going to make a dark color and I have a light color here. I'm going to clean my brush because I don't want to get white in my dark color. Okay, so I'm going to take the black that I mixed and take a generous scoop of that and mix it into this one here. And that'll be our dark shade. There we go. Okay, I like to start dark to light, so I'm going to start with this dark shade here. And just go into the dark spots that we painted with the purple. Some of them I want to show as really dark, so I'll leave the dark ones and then just paint around them here with a few more lines. If you feel more comfortable with the smaller brush, by all means do that. Now I'm going to think about my light source again, top left, so shadows are going to fall on this right hand side and underneath here. So I will darken this side up a little bit here. Ice cream is quite fun to paint because there's all these different shapes in it. Creates lots of little highlights and shadows for us. Okay, so I just, again, kind of just fade it out as it gets up to this side here. And sometimes they're just like little random marks. That's okay. Okay, so let's go into the highlights and then we'll just kind of dabble back and forth with all these colors. Clean out my brush. This is another really important step that I think gets missed a lot and where people have trouble is using a dirty brush. Then it muddies your colors and then you kind of get frustrated. So really important part to just clean out your brush between colors here. Okay, so we'll take our highlight now and we're just going to start top left and sort of fade it out. There's a little ridge here. And working wet on wet like this is a really fun thing to do. Lets your colors mix right on the canvas. And then if you need to layer it on thicker, just get a good scoop, load your brush up, and then instead of like scraping kind of like perpendicular, take your brush like this and then just gently drag it across very parallel to your surface. There we go. That's going to give you some nice coverage. Instead of scraping the paint off, it's just going to pull it off. So to lay a little bit thicker. And then there's kind of a bit of a highlight going on here. But generally speaking, as long as you think about your highlights being on the top left, shadows bottom right, you're good. A lot of these areas can be kind of confusing in here, but I'm just sort of mixing in some highlights every once in a while here. And I'm going to blend the two out a little bit there. And it might just show a little bit back here as well. Okay, that's looking good. See a little bit more here. Now, I think I want to put a little bit more of my mid-tone color in, so I'm just going to rinse out my brush. Okay, I'm holding it the same way as if I just picked it up off the table. And then I just want to throw a little bit more of this bright color. Yeah, because we kind of lost a bit of that bright color there in here. So this is like our mid-tone. So it lies right in between the highlight and the shadow. I try to not overblend as well. Easier said than done, I know. But just kind of do one quick stroke instead of like 10, because once you get, you know, over blending, it's all kind of turns to mud. So if you get into that situation, maybe just take a break, let it dry, and come back to it. There's only so much you can do when it starts to get really muddy and blended. So just take a break. You're doing awesome. Give yourself a pat on the back. Because it's not an easy thing to do. Painting takes a lot of patience and a lot of practice. All right. It's looking nice. I am going to add a little bit more highlight, and we'll just kind of see how it goes. Sometimes when I feel like an area is getting close, I don't want to overwork it, so I'll just jump to the background. I'm going to add a little bit more highlight to it. I feel like it's getting very close to where I want it to be. So that's a good thing. I'll take some white and just mix it into this. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of that color, not all of it. Actually, I might just move it to the side here. Yeah, because I want lots of white. I want my highlight to be very light. And also, just be willing to be loose and adapt. That's a key component to the painting process, which is why kids make amazing artists. They don't overthink things like we do as adults. And if you're a kid painting along here, you're doing amazing, and you know what I'm talking about. You just go for it. Have fun. Enjoy the process. Okay, now you might want to use the little brush for this part, but I'm going to try to go with Mama Bear because I always like to use the biggest brush possible. Keeps me nice and loose. Now again, once you see, you can only do so many brush strokes before you start to lose that color and start to drag out the other color. So just kind of keep it in mind, keep an eye on that, load your brush up with more paint as needed. Now this highlight is really just on this top side here. Okay, it's going to wrap around the edge a little bit. I also like to paint with the shape of what I'm painting. So the curved edges here, there's a little bit on this ridge. I can feel it getting a bit thin, so even though there's lots of paint on my brush, there's not much on the tip here. So I have to kind of flatten it out to see that. There we go. Okay. Now there are highlights in shadows. It can be a bit of a misnomer, but there are highlights in our shadows sometimes. So I'm just gently doing a few, not too, they're not as light as our really bright ones over here, but they do exist. So let's throw a couple of those in and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm just going to take my dark color here, and I've got some white in my brush, and I'm just going to mix that together. So a little bit of white mixed into your shadow color there. And this is another good step to just kind of take it a little bit to the next level. Grays add a lot to the painting. So I'm just going to dabble that in the shadowed area a little bit here. Not too much, but just a little bit. It gives it like a backlit kind of effect here. Okay, now it can be easy to get carried away with that, so I will try to stop soon. Okay, done. Now, like I said, if we want to go back, we can, but for now I think I'll leave the ice cream as it is because it's looking good. You also want to step back. If you can at some point, just stop and walk away, put your painting up on the wall or lean it against something that you can step back a little bit from it and look at it with fresh eyes. And then you'll sort of see it again for the first time. And then you'll be able to say, oh, I need to add something here or there or whatever. And that's a good way to just kind of see things again. Okay, I want to address the background here. So I want to pick a color that's not going to take away from my ice cream. So I'm going to actually use my saved paint here, this gray color, with a little bit of something else as well. So I'm going to use the bigger brush, Mama Bear. And if you don't have this paint, what you can do is just use your black and a little bit more white and yellow. should give you this color. Okay, I'll do a little test here. Essentially it's a gray, so if we took our black, I'm running out of spots. Holy cow. Okay, a little bit of black, and then some white and yellow. So yellow and white. Give that a mix. Okay, need lots more black. I just want to show you if you don't have the paint saved up like I do here. So if you've got some saved paint, it's probably a good color, whatever it is, a brown or a gray. It's going to be kind of a dark shade. I'm just adding more black in here to get this shade that I'm looking for. There we go. Okay. So yeah, a little bit of black, yellow, and white will give us this color. But since I have some already, I'm going to use it. Okay, and I'm just going to go everywhere. And this is where you can have lots of fun. I will pretty much fill this all in. And then we'll get darker and highlights added as we go. So, yeah. Feel free to leave some of the background showing if you like it, like that. Sometimes I do like the background showing a bit. It's so nice to use this paint that would have just been tossed out. Okay, I'm going to bring this right up to the ice cream here, and I don't really want to have that harsh line. I know I'm going to go back over top of this, so I won't worry about it too much. I'm just going to see if I can get close to that edge there. Yeah. Okay. Same with the pink. You just want to be, or your ice cream, whatever color that is, a little careful around the edge of it. It's okay to leave some of the background showing, not to worry. And acrylics are really the most forgiving medium of them all. So if you have a boo-boo and you accidentally go over top of something or something smears, not to worry, let it dry, go back over top of it with some more paint. Everything is pretty forgivable with acrylic paints. I kind of do like a crisscross brush stroke, but it's really just to cover here. Some of these strokes will show up, but I'm not thinking about them right now because I know I'm going to do a little bit more here, so don't worry too much. And if it's easier, you can flip your canvas around and, some paint, white paint got in, that's okay. You know, you can do this kind of thing. If it's easier for you to paint like on one side. Now, these are similar in color. They're just a little bit different, this edge here. But if they do look too similar, you just want to lighten or darken one of them so that you can still see that line between your cone and your background. And I'm just going to fill it all in, and then we'll add some shadows and highlights. And that color is still going to show through a little bit, that dark background that we did. So it's not lost. This is a great color. I think I'm going to like using this saved up paint. And you can use it as a base. If it's not the right color, just take some of it and add some of the other colors that you need to make whatever color you're going for. So if I want it more red, I'll just add a little bit more red or whatever. And that way we can use it. Okay, looking good. I got most of that covered up. Okay, so now I want to add shadows over here, highlights over here, and I know I'm going to lose that line, so let me darken that while I'm thinking about it. I'm just going to take Baby Bear and my purple color here, and just going to do a little line down here. While you're at it, let's just darken up some of these colors. I need to make a little bit more, so 2 scoops of red, 1 scoop of blue, okay, so we'll just darken in some of these bits in here. I'll darken this seam up here. And then the edge of the cone. A little bit there. And then, so think about like where would the shadows be? So if the ice cream is on top, there's going to be a little shadow underneath it. This layer's on top of this one, so that's why that little shadow's there. Alright, so clean my brush. Get your big brush, and we'll do kind of the same thing we did before with the ice cream, and basically take this color, whatever your background color is. If you don't want to use this color, feel free to do any color you like, and just lighten and darken it. Okay, so I'll use my other palette because we're getting a little full here, and just scoop some of that in there, and then another bit in here. I need a light and a dark, so I don't need too much in the light area. I'm going to take some white. I'm going to take a good amount of white. Now if your paint's still wet, it's going to also mix in a little bit on the canvas there, so that's nice. Okay, that's a good light shade, and then I want to create a dark shade, so clean out your brush. I need a little bit more black, so I'll just make a little bit more of that, which is, for me, 2 scoops of red. Get a little bit more red on my palette here. There we go. I use these squeezy bottles for my paint. It comes with a little cap, so I just like to make sure I put the cap back on and hear the snap. Again, just to keep it nice and dry. We don't lose paint. Okay, 2 scoops of red, one of blue, and one of yellow. So I'm going to clean my brush because it's really dirty. Don't want to get my yellow dirty there. Okay, one of yellow. All right, give that a mix. Again, you might need to tweak it, but basically a dark shade is all we're looking for because we just want to tint a color here. Okay, I've got some paint on my brush, so I will just mix that in to our background shade, and I can see I need more, so I will grab more. Here we go. Okay, that's looking good. Right. So I like to start with the darks, and a bigger brush is better for the background because we don't want to get all crazy detailed in the background. Now, if it's not going on as dark as you like, I want to darken that a little bit more. I might even just kind of go in, because it's still a little wet, just with the black. See what that does. It's kind of a moody painting, but I like it. Yeah, that's working pretty good. Okay, now this is where your brush strokes are going to show a little bit more, so just want to be thinking about that. And so I do put a little bit more thought into how they look when I know it's the last layer here. I'm just going to throw a little bit more of this dark shade around, basically around this side here, and it'll get light over here. So it's a little bit dark here. And a little bit around the cone here. And that's another reason I like this painting style, this kind of gestural loose style, is that it's, well, quite frankly, it's easier than over blending and like being super blended. But you paint how you like. This is just my preferred way of doing it. Allows me to be looser and quicker, and in my opinion makes me paint better, but it's just like personal preference, right? Okay, so I'm just looking for dots. I kind of like to do little, like a pointillism style. I'll just darken, so I got a little bit of black here. Darken the edge a little here. I love working wet on the canvas there. Okay. I don't want too much of what we call a halo effect here. It's a bit halo-y. So I'll just take my brush with my dark paint and go up to that edge there a little bit more. Just kind of blend it out. And I got a little bit going on down here too, so I'll darken that up a little bit. Don't worry about going over top of things here, because you can go back over them afterwards. Like if I accidentally go too far into my ice cream, I'll go back later with some pink. That's fine. Okay. Coming in here a little bit, we'll just sort of gradually fade it out. And let's clean our brush and go into our highlight and start bringing highlights into this. I just realizing looking at this that we've got a really nice green to red kind of happening here. So it's pink, but it's still, if you look at the color wheel, opposites, which are really nice together. So that was a happy accent. Okay, I got my light color and just throwing it in here. Top left corner. And I sort of scumble it around, like dry, sort of let your brush go thin with the paint and just kind of scumble is the best word for it. Scumble it around, fading it out to the corners here. And I'll bring it over here. It's nice to mix your light color into your dark color and vice versa, so it's kind of a matter of like dancing back and forth between the two. And like blend this as much or as little as you like. I'm really liking the way it's looking. So I'm going to keep it pretty loose. This is where you get to have fun with your brush strokes and show like your personality. Now I do want to carry a little bit of a light color into the shadows, but not too much. So I'll take mid-tone here with a little bit of light. Just kind of like that. Just so it has a little bit of interest as well. Mix the light and the mid-tone here to create another color. And I'm really enjoying the looseness of this. If you want to blend it more, feel free to, but I like the way this is coming here. Coming along. Okay. Knowing when to stop's the hardest part. Still is for me. I'm just going to throw a couple little light ones in here, just a little bit. I sort of switch up the direction of my brush to create a bit of interest. Okay, I'm going to stop there because it's looking good. Now we just want to get back to this waffle cone here. Okay, so we need to add a little bit more highlight there. Let's go to Baby Bear Brush. Okay, so let's see. I need to mix some more of this color here, and I'm running out of room on my palette, so I'll just scoop some into my new palette here. So I need some yellow, a bit of red, not as much red, and some white. Let's give that a mix and see what you get. So a little bit more orange this time, which is okay. And then my little trick, add a touch, tiny bit of blue, just to make that a little bit more of an interesting color, okay? So tiny bit of blue. And if you don't feel comfortable with it, you can avoid it, don't worry, it's okay. Okay, just creates a little bit more interest for me. Now, this color is kind of in between the two, which is nice. So I'm going to use it as a shadow on this one and a highlight on this one. So I'm just going to go around these squares. And you can do the edge of the seam here. And then some shadow as well at the bottom of under the ice cream here. And then just kind of squiggling it around here. Okay, now I'll take the same color and use it as a highlight. So there are lines for this waffle cone here. So if we just kind of do these basic, like a cross hatch in here, loose crosshatch. That should work. We'll just go this way. And you can start and stop it. It doesn't have to be a perfect, like dots are good. I love dots. Just kind of breaks it up, allows some interesting spots for your eye to go. And now let's mix a lighter version of this. So I need some white. Take some white. And just with what's in my brush, I'm going to mix that together. Create another color here. Okay. And then I'm just going to go over top of some of those spots we just did, and then a little bit in between here to create another highlight. The edge of the waffle cone is going to be pretty bright where the light's hitting it. So this whole side is going to be pretty bright. I don't want to cover up the shadows because I like those, so I'll just kind of paint around them. Again, little dots, quick brush strokes are good. And we can bring this in to the dark side a little bit. But just a little bit less than we had with that other color. So something like that. Okay. It's feeling a little dark, so I might go in with the lighter, with another color there just to bring it forward a bit more. It's feeling a little dark, which is kind of cool, but sort of dramatic, but I just want to pop it up a bit. So I'll take some of this guy here, and let's see, down here it could be a little lighter. And maybe up here. Helps to kind of blur your eyes a little bit. It will allow you to see the colors more simply, the lights and the darks, and see where you need to add or adjust. Okay, that's pretty good. I like that. Just adding a little bit to this side here. Okay, now I'll go in a little bit more with some highlights, but other than that, I think it's nearly done. I always like to do my brightest colors at the end. I need a bit more white on my palette. So just squeeze some in here. And sometimes I just go in with straight white because it's just, when it's wet like this, it might be the best way to do it. So let's try that. Got the Baby Bear brush, and I'm just going to bring out some of these highlights a little bit more. So on the ice cream here, again, the same technique we did before. Hold your brush the same way as you're painting, so perpendicular. And then just load it up with lots of paint and simply drag it gently across it so that it pulls up a lot of that paint. There's a nice ridge in here. Try not to over mix it because that'll just create mud, and I want these to stand out as highlights in here, so maybe I do a little bit more here. Tiny bit around the outside edge there. And then a little bit on the cone. So thinking about the brightest spots here. And then also some of those lines, we can create a little bit more. And see how it's blending right on the canvas? That's the magical part. I just love that. So I'm just kind of creating that crosshatch a little bit. The eye will fill in the rest, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't like doing perfect. Perfect's not real. Okay. And when you feel like it's ready and it's done, stop. And that's hard to tell sometimes, I know. But like I said, put it somewhere far away, walk away from it, look at it from across the room. It'll give you some fresh eyes. I want to add just a touch more of my pink if I can here. Yeah, so I need to make a little bit more. So I'll take some red and some white. There was a touch of yellow in that too. You can just see how it tones it down ever so slightly. But instead of it just being kind of like a primary color of pink, the yellow just makes it a touch more interesting. I just want to thicken that up. And you can go kind of thick here at the end. It's really fun to lay it on thick and get some interesting brush strokes. And some interesting movement with your brushwork. But like I said, knowing when to stop is tricky. And when you feel like you're tipping over the edge there of, I might do too much here, so I feel good with what I've got. Just a touch more in the light here. And that's good. Okay, like I said, I could carry on and on. I love this process, but I'm going to stop right there. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this little ice cream painting. I'd love to see your stuff, so please share it with us here. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.